The final men's golf major of the year is this weekend, and it is a big one. It is the Open Championship at Royal Portrush. Rory McIlroy tried to take home his home country crown this week as they head back to Royal Portrush. First time for Rory in the Open at Royal Portrush. Didn't go so great, so we'll see what he can do in the round number 2 for him, but also his knockout Scotty Scheffler, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, and a field of hungry competitors, which should be a fun event. Today, we're going to break down our thoughts on the Open Championship, breaking down the keys to Royal Portrush, our favorite win bets at FanDuel Sportsbook, and the top DFS plays on FanDuel as well. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Tuesday, but it's Monday, by Brandon Gdula. You can find him on X at Gdula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gdula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, Open Championship week is here. How are we doing today?
Good. Little bittersweet. It's the final men's major of the year, so it's always a bit of a bummer, but it's always a good tournament. Just some different golf to watch for change, which need a little bit more of on the PGA Tour, or I guess can never have enough variety on the PGA Tour. It's not like I have a real specific issue with the tour. Just, it'd be nice to see some more variety, I suppose. But yeah, I think, and the thing with the Open too is that this is how we end the year, and this is the major that is kind of, I don't want to say leading all of our thoughts over the break till Augusta next year, but it's the last dose we get. So it's kind of like, well, hey, who's the most recent major winner? And last year we got to go into that.
Sometimes it's Brian Harman,
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about how volatile this event is, but last year it was Xander. Yeah, that was nice. But who's going to be the final major winner for the next 8 months?
I'm not going to lie. Wouldn't hate if it were Xander again. We'll talk about that later on, because our job for today, we're going to break down both our favorite win bets for this week and the top DFS picks as well. We're going to take the same schedule as we had for the previous 3 majors for this year. We're going to do the Heat Check today, breaking down our top win bets and the top DFS picks on FanDuel as well. Then tomorrow on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed, we'll talk through the non-outrights that we like for this week. So on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page, a twofer for this week. Heat Check today, Covering the Spread tomorrow, and then on the FanDuel Research podcast feed today, Covering the Spread podcast feed tomorrow. Just subscribe to all those to get it, make it easier on yourself to get them as they're posted. If you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating on the FanDuel Research podcast feed, but also a thumbs up on YouTube. We appreciate those of you watching over there as always. And of course, despite this being the last major, this will not be our final show for the year on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. We're going to go all throughout the end of the FedEx Cup playoffs. So catch us right here, FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page, for all of your golf needs from now to the end of the FedEx Cup playoffs. Wind, weather, drama, and history. The British, can I say British here? Am I getting yelled at for saying British anywhere in this show? It's the British major delivers it all. Whatever. They can yell at me later. I'm just reading the copy, man. And with FanDuel, you can make every round count, because right now all customers get a profit boost every round of this week's major. Use it on anything from 2 and 3 ball matchups, to round leaders, closest to the pin markets, or who you think's going to take down the whole dang thing. It is on the board. If it's on the board, it is boostable. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet the majors, from pre-tournament picks to live bets as the leaderboard shifts and legends rise. So don't miss your shot. Download the app and swing for some green with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amounts. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelpline.ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at the Open Championship. As mentioned, is a Royal Portrush, which is 7,381 yards and a par 71. This last hosted the Open Championship back in 2019. Again, Rory was there. Rory did not make the cut. I was very sad about that at the time. Hoping to be less sad this weekend. There are 156 golfers in the field, and the top 70 plus ties make the cut after the first 2 rounds for this week. So, Brandon, we do actually have history at Royal Portrush in the not so distant past back in 2019. What should we know about this course before making bets and filling out our lineups?
I mean, yeah, we have history, but we don't have trial length data. So don't have
Win
a
some,
lot of
you lose
stats.
some.
Win some, lose some. That's very true. It's going to be, that's a pretty good way to think about this week, because this is just a really volatile event. Going to win some, lose some. I think that's going to be how it kind of goes. Some good names are going to miss the cut. You're going to get a couple names you haven't heard of in a while, or just kind of rarely see at the top of the leaderboard for a bit. Just how the Open Championship works. So while we can't really dig in too heavily to past data, I mean, you can take some trends from other Open Championships. Unfortunately, when you do that, you kind of see not a whole lot pops or stands out from the rest, because a lot of different ways to play links golf. And so sometimes when I see that, like data wise, it just all kind of merges together and there's not a lot of standout stats. So it tends to play kind of toward the baseline, even though it might seem like it shouldn't. And there should be certain stats that get a little bit elevated. With that said, though, there are some things we can take away. It's a long par 71 based on, just raw distance, hole by hole. If you kind of break things down, how long every hole is compared to the tour average, you see, 4 holes about 110% or longer than average. A lot of longer par 4s, over about 475 or so. Some longer par 3s, especially the 16th, it's 236. A couple short holes to sort of offset that a little bit, but for the most part, it's pretty gradually plus distance on a lot of these holes, or average. It's not like, there's 2 long holes and everything else is just sort of average. It's kind of like incrementally long throughout. And with that, what I think is you're going to have to make a stand. You're going to kind of have to make your own decision. I'll tell you how I'm viewing things. But according to the GCSAA breakdown for Portrush, the average fairway width is 27 yards, which is pretty narrow, all things considered. It doesn't really kind of stand out in terms of, you think maybe some Open Championships, links golf, just coastal golf, hit it, it's going to roll out. Technically, it might miss the fairway, etc. But if you really look at this course, there's, no real end to the ways you can find visuals on a course like this. But there are going to be places you don't want to miss, whether it's fairway bunkers that are really penalizing, or I guess technically gorse bushes. Nobody yell at me. Wasn't an agronomist that would know that. I don't know. Whoever knows plants. But anyway, plant knower. I mean, it's like,
that's the technical term.
Ball knower, but blank.
Plant knower.
I think. Yeah. So, there's going to be places you don't want to miss. So I don't think that just selling out for driving distance is going to be the key. And we also kind of saw that in 2019 with one Shane Lowry winning and, fending off Tommy Fleetwood, the 1-2 there. That year, I know Finau was 3rd, Lee Westwood and Brooks Koepka were 4th to round out the top 5 from that perspective. But, it's not necessarily a ton of super long hitters in that top 5 who really stood out. The other thing, too, that's kind of different is you probably think like links golf, massive greens, a lot of lag putts. These greens, again, according to the GCSAA website, 5,400 square feet on average, which is smaller than your average PGA Tour, average green size. So I think that's interesting. And I think that's going to affect the way that I play things a little bit this week. Again, you could say, hey, distance is all that matters, whatever. But again, if you just take 5 minutes, watch a course overview or pull up a course overview and look, you're going to see some places like you don't want to miss here, right? Like you don't just hit it far and let it roll out. And so I think that, that's a big factor here as to how you think you want to play it. And again, here's how I think this is going to be a little bit different than what I expected as I dug in. I think that based on the fairway width, the types of misses that come into play, the small greens, I think this is going to be much more of a tee to green test, a ball striking test, than it is, just hit it far, hit it near the green. You're going to miss these big greens with all these runoffs and everything. Have some creative short game, make some lag putts, make sure you're not 3-putting from, 60 feet all the time. I think that this is going to be a little bit more of that like ball striking tee to green test this week. It's going to explain why I like one golfer in particular when we talk about our outrights, a guy who's just got phenomenal irons, but not the best short game. But I think that still makes sense. And so I understand for anybody who doesn't really see it the same way as I do, but here's the thing. There's not a ton of data we can sink our teeth into and say, well, statistically, here's exactly what you need to do. You can estimate based on similar courses, whatever. But if I'm kind of just thinking about this, I don't do a lot with course comps just because it's not the way my brain works. I don't think it's super important, but something like Pebble Beach comes to mind a little bit, where it's small greens, got to have some accuracy, not super long. It is longer, but it's not brutally long and you just got to hammer driver. I think that that's kind of somewhat interesting, those types of courses. And so that's probably the best comp that that people would probably understand easily. So for me, my key stats this week going to be strokes gained approach as always. Strokes gained off the tee. And I wanted to kind of emphasize that typically I say emphasis on distance or accuracy. I think it's equal emphasis. So it's really strokes gained off the tee, but making sure that you're not gaining strokes by being great with one of those two stats and terrible with the other. I'm willing to overlook that potentially for certain golfers like Xander right now because his accuracy is not great. But I want strokes gained around the green because historically you do see an emphasis on some around the green play. And I might sound like a hypocrite later. However, but I do think that there are you can really make a case for this being more of a tee to green test than you would typically think. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's kind of the edge that I think I can create a little bit this week. And that's how I'm viewing it.
And I do think that context is important where you're viewing it a bit different than other links courses, because we're going to talk about golfers who have done well past in the Open Championship. Maybe you want to look at guys who have done well last week or did well last week at, I don't want to say the Renaissance Club. I'm going to say the Renaissance Club. I'll say someone's name properly if it's a name, but that's not a name. It's a course. So I'm going to call it Renaissance. You may look at past links course history and what they did last week at the Scottish Open and stuff like that. The fact that you were saying this is not necessarily a traditional, the way it plays, a traditional links golf course with the way it plays. So I do want to go through course history here or Open Championship history, but are you agreeing where maybe we don't raise all alarm bells on guys with not the most amazing links history because it might play a bit different?
I could see taking a bit of that stance. Now, of course, when we talk links history, we're basically talking Open Championship history for this conversation, and that's not really all encompassing. We cite Data Golf all the time. They actually have a really cool visualization on your home country and where you're expected to play well or not. And Americans, which is, a significant portion of this week's field. And really what we probably are asking is can Americans go play well in Scotland, Northern Ireland, things like that. It's I think it's a minus 1 point something expected strokes gained per round, which is not negligible necessarily. But with that said, we've seen Americans win the Open recently, so I don't want to go overboard from that perspective either. So I'm okay to take the sort of the general mentality of downplay it a little bit,
sure,
but the reality is still 3 of the last 4 Open Championships are American.
All right, looks like you are back now. But let's dive into golfers who have played well at the Open Championship with that sell at the Open. You back?
Can you hear me?
I can. You want to run through who's done best at recent Open Championships?
Yeah, my internet speed is good, so I don't know what's going on.
Must be me then. I'll put it back on. I'm plugged into Ethernet. My Ethernet cord's been kind of stupid recently, so maybe I'll just go back to Wi-Fi. Let's roll.
Yes. I look at the last 5 years of data. This instance, it's the last 5 iterations of the Open because we didn't have it in 2020, and also coincidentally 5 years ago or 5 events ago, the Open was at Portrush. So I'm looking at 2019 through last year, total strokes gained. That gets us a semblance of volume and total form. From that perspective, I got Jon Rahm number 1. Salary on FanDuel is $11,600. He's 12-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. Just kind of makes sense. He's made 5 straight cuts at the Open. Top 12 and 4 of the last 5. Top 7 and 3 of the last 4. Did finish T11 at Portrush back in 2019. And this year at majors, T14 at the Masters, T8 at the PGA Championship, and T7 at the US Open. So Jon Rahm leads the way. It's helpful look, we know that Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy are 1 and 2. Who's third this week? Is it Bryson? Is it Rahm? Is it anybody else? I think Rahm's current major form and his form at the Open makes him a justifiable sort of no-brainer number 3 for the week. Next up on the list is Shane Lowry. He's 30-1 to win this week on FanDuel Sportsbook. So he's second best by this measure. And of course, he won in 2019 at Royal Portrush. Since then, he's been T12, T21, missed the cut, and 6th at the Open. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's always played well at the Open. When he won at Portrush, he had missed 4 straight cuts prior at the Open. That's a good kind of reminder of, we would have said, hey, he's not in good form at the Open, even though he should be. And he goes out and wins by 6 shots. Like, that's kind of the Open in a nutshell to some degree. He's got great irons right now too. Short game's not superb, but again, I would sound like a hypocrite if I said that as a big negative for Shane Lowry and talk about Victor Hovland later on. Xander Schauffele's next up, 25-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. You're going to hear a lot about Xander this week from us, but maybe others as well. You know, he won here last year. He's made all 7 cuts at the Open. He's just such a good major player overall. I love that for him. T41 at Portrush in 2019, and that was his worst finish at the Open. 6 top 26 results in 7 tries for Xander. So what's not to like? We'll talk about if there's anything not to like, but there's a whole lot to like for sure. Jordan Spieth next up, 55-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. His recent finishes at the Open, T20, 2nd, T8, T23, and T25. He's actually got 7 starts of T25 or better at the Open, and that started with a win back in 2017 at Royal Birkdale. So in total, Spieth's got 11 made cuts and 8 top 25 finishes. So no missed cuts, 8 top 25s and 11 starts. Spieth, and kind of,
as a company guy, I must state that he did go on the Up and Adams show and say that he is healthy. Just company guy. Just want to throw that out there.
Hey, that
FanDuel
is
TV.
Great to hear.
Up and Adams YouTube page.
He and his wife did have a child recently. I've heard that as like a negative. I can't really speak to that, how much that might affect things, but Spieth's always interesting when it comes to the Open Championship.
New dad narrative, is it get a bigger bump when you're in the UK, or is it, I guess not, sorry, in Northern Ireland, or how does that work?
I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask. I'm just relaying the information that I've heard. I'll
get the interns on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tommy Fleetwood on the list as well, 28-1. He missed the cut here last year. So that tells you like how good he's been otherwise at Opens. And again, just kind of a reminder that this is a volatile tournament. But from 2018 through 2023, Fleetwood was T12, 2nd, T33, T4, and T10. Tommy's going to be a a topic for sure. Brian Harman won in 2023, bookends that with a T6 in 2022 and a T60 last year. T19 as well in 2021. Did miss the cut in 2019 at Portrush for what that's worth. And he actually had missed 4 straight cuts in his career after debuting with a T26. So like, it's just probably another reminder that open form's kind of spotty, which is interesting because Scotty Scheffler, the favorite, is on this list. He's only got 4 starts in this span, which is notable. His first Open was in 2021, so he didn't play Portrush in 2019. T8, T21, T23, and T7 in his Open history. Hasn't putted pretty well in any of those, which kind of sounds obvious, but his putter's been pretty good of late. Was not good last week. That's also got a lot of people chattering about his putting potentially on these fescue greens. Rounding out the list here, we got 5 more names, and frankly, if you've been paying attention, these are all kind of big hitters. Not like big hitters in terms of the longest hitters, but like these are some big names, and Ryan Harman. And then we move into Cameron Young, 80-1, Cameron Smith, 110, Colin Morikawa, 30-1, Rory McIlroy, 7-1, and Victor Hovland, 30-1. So Cam Young, he's got 3 starts, no wins, but is still on the list because he was a runner-up in 2022 at St. Andrews, T8 at Royal Liverpool in 2023, and then T31 at Troon last year. Cam Smith missed the cut at Troon, so that was broke the streak of 5 straight made cuts at the Open. Of course, we know he won in 2022 at St. Andrews. Other results, not as good as you might think. No finishes better than T20, which was 2019 at Royal Liverpool. Colin Morikawa, since his win in 2021, which was his debut Open, which is sick. Missed cut T16. And so that's good enough to make this list. A win, a 16th, and 2 missed cuts, which again is kind of indicative of a lot of things. Rory, does not include his 2014 win, but missed the cut here in 2019, just for what that's worth. But pretty good otherwise. T46, 3rd, T6 between 2021 and 2023. And then Victor Hovland, another guy who missed the cut last year. But other than that, T12, T4, T13. Just a reminder again, like you would think because he's not a good around the green player, he would not translate well to the Opens. But he's also potentially not, is probably the best way I can phrase it too, is like he's not a good around the green player at courses where he's gaining or he's logging a lot of his strokes gain numbers, which are very different than this like type of golf. So it just always is you can throw a little bit of subjectivity into a lot of this stuff.
Speaking of subjectivity, let's talk Rory, because there's going to be a lot of that this week for a guy who is playing in his home country, Northern Ireland. He's 7-1 at FanDuel Sports, but coming off an event where he finished second, the irons looked really good. Driver still like not amazing by any means for Rory in that event, but we know what this guy can do when he's at full capacity. He has all the narrative around him for this week. 7-1. You've mentioned a couple of times how volatile this event is. For me, that has been my biggest hangup with Rory at 7-1. And the reason that I have not bet him is I know it's a volatile event. I know it's hard to predict, and we're not getting a huge discount there on him. So that's kind of been my issue with Rory, is the volatility scares me away. I'm not gonna like look at him this week. And I think that I want to keep tabs on where his odds are heading into Wednesday night. But how are you feeling about Rory? 7-1 right now, FanDuel Sportsbook.
Yeah, very similar, where you can't look at anything and say, well, here's why he's not going to win. Like, it's not a specific thing about him. It's more a matter of it's really hard to win this event. Like, I went through and ran like predictability metrics and stuff of events, and the Open is sort of historically of late one of the most volatile compared to pre-tournament odds and how golfers actually perform. With that said, again, we've still seen some pretty major names win the Open recently. So it's kind of one of those, like, these top names are a little more likely to miss the cut, but still, for the most part, they're still the favorites to go out and win. So Rory this week, I'm right there with you. It's the only thing you can kind of nitpick is the actual number, because I don't know that it fully encaptures the amount of volatility here.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm out on Rory at the moment. What's the number it would have to be for you to want to get there?
I actually might do it at 8. I don't know. Like that seems short to say I'd bet this guy at 8. But I also don't think we're going to get there. So, like, I'd love for someone to force my hand. I think that maybe this will better answer that question for you. I have purposely left open an outright slot on my card for this week with the potential to add Rory McIlroy before Wednesday. I've bet a golfer at 80, one at 30, and one at 25. So it's like I could add someone short if I wanted to and still feel okay. Like, I'm not getting overexposed outrights. So there's an open seat at the table, and I'm willing to make Rory be that seat potentially. So 8-1 is where I'm like, interesting. I don't know if we'll get there, but I'd like to make that decision. What about for you?
Are you more tempted by Scotty at plus 450 or Rory at plus 700?
Rory, personally.
If they were both plus 800,
I would take Scotty.
Okay.
Like, Scotty should be the favorite. He should be above Rory, but the gap is so big that I'm like, I don't need to worry about that. So I would prefer Scotty heads up, and like Scotty at 8, I'd taken that wouldn't be a debate. That one I'd take. But like Rory at 8, it's like, okay, that makes me think for a bit.
The reason I know we're never getting Scotty at 8-1. The reason I asked is how much of Rory's won the Open before. He's going to just naturally be more familiar with this golf. Scotty, can't really putt on these greens. Like, it's just a different style. I'm hearing enough chatter against Scotty of like, well, this ain't the week for him to win. And I agree with that, more so from a volatility standpoint than I do from he doesn't have what it takes to win an Open. So that's why I wanted to ask. But Rory, of the top 2 names, I'm very interested by. I'm kind of falling into the trap of also being very interested in Jon Rahm as well at 12-1. But Rory at 7 and Rahm at 12. In the past, I've been more Rahm there.
Yeah.
This week, I think I'm a little bit Rory because it seems like he's got everything going for him right now.
Well, let's talk about why Rahm is such a strong consideration for you. And if you might prefer Rory. And that's because Jon Rahm's current form is very, very good right now. So let's take a look at the current form section. Which golfers are entering with the hottest form for Royal Portrush?
Yeah, so as always, we're looking at the last 3 months of data from Data Golf's strokes gained query, which adjusts for field strength and tour that you play on. And if you look at the last 3 months, the leader is Scotty Scheffler, gaining 3.49 strokes per round on effectively the world average male professional golfer. So how do we contextualize that? Well, that's just sick to think about, honestly, because nobody else is above a 2.58 in that span. So Scotty, nearly a shot per round better than everyone else in the field over the last 3 months. And that name that's second is Bryson DeChambeau, who I know a lot of people aren't super interested in this week due to the course setup. I understand that. I'm not really going to argue that too much. But Jon Rahm is at a 2.43, and Jon Rahm, as we laid out, has great Open history. I would be very surprised if Rahm doesn't win an Open in his career. It just feels like he's got the creativity and like grit to sort of go out and conquer any like test that the Open would throw his way. So I think Rahm is just very justified as that number 3 name this week. And then rounding out the list, we have Tommy Fleetwood at a 2.06 and Rory McIlroy at a 1.92 over the last 3 months. And we'll talk more about golfers with lower salaries, etc., to see who's kind of undervalued potentially from a FanDuel DFS perspective. But does the fact that Fleetwood is 4th in recent form is a good Open player, does it do anything for you at a number like 28-1?
Not to win. Come on. You know the answer here.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. I just had to ask.
No, not to win. I think that he's like fine. Like, it's funny because like I'll have like an odd screen over on my other computer, like setting up during the day on Monday to see he's like getting bet down and stuff like that. And I saw a number moving and I looked over, I was like, oh, that was by Tommy. And then I realized it was his top 10 market was moving. His outright was not moving. So not to win, but I understand he's in very good form. He's a good player. He's good in links golf. I understand it. I will go also with my win bets.
I hear that.
All right. Who else is in good form as far as the guys with lower salaries?
So Ben Griffin, I mentioned Rory's at a 1.92. Ben Griffin is at a 1.90. His salary's 9,700. He's become our guy and really a lot of people's guy, I guess, just because the data is so good. 2 missed cuts at the Open the last 2 years, despite positive approach in both. Missed the cut at the John Deere last time out with bad putting, but kind of getting a little bit of a layoff. Just an interesting name for sure. 90-1 to win this week. Keegan Bradley, a 1.83. 9,500 is the salary. He's 100-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. Came in at T41 at the Rocket Classic after winning the Travelers. Speaking of Tommy, he's got plus distance and good around the green numbers, which is typically a good recipe for Opens, but not, again, the distance itself is not what I'm selling out for. But he's got 5 straight missed cuts at Opens, starting with a 2019 missed cut at Royal Portrush, but had made 5 or 6 cuts prior. So I think it's probably unfair to say that Keegan can't play well due to the recent form at Opens, because the form right now is good and he's kind of done it in the past. So an interesting name, especially at a salary of 9,500 this week. Sam Burns, 9,800 is the salary. He's at a 1.75 since finishing T7 at the US Open, which is kind of like a T7 by name only. It was a lot more competitive than that. T17 at the Travelers, T47 at the Genesis Scottish Open with bad irons last week. T76, T42 missed cut, T31 and 4 open starts, so not the best form there. Weather could also be a bit of an issue, and it's going to be hard to kind of remove yourself from how he played in the rainy conditions and like post-rain at the US Open. So just something to note there. Matt Fitzpatrick, probably going to hear a lot about him this week. 1.62 true strokes gained per round over the last 3 months. 9,900 is the salaries. 55-1 to win on FanDuel Sportsbook. It's kind of an interesting number for a former major winner. T17 at Travelers, T8 at the Rocket Classic, T4 at the Genesis Scottish Open for his last 3 finishes. He's got 5 straight made cuts at Opens, including a T20 at Portrush in 2019. Just a name that I think is definitely interesting. Chris Goddard he's not in the field yet. I was going to double check that. He's in the field, but doesn't have a FanDuel salary yet. I would hope and think his salary comes in around 8,600 based on everything. Could be a little bit higher than that. Anything lower than that, I'd be really interested. Anything 9,000 or lower, probably I'd be there. But he's at a 1.56. Of course, won last week at the Genesis Scottish Open. But he's actually got, so if you exclude his first event in 2025, which was a T46 at the Century, he's either been top 30 or missed the cut in 21 events since then. The missed cut count is 9. So he's got 12 top 30s and 9 missed cuts. So it's basically all or nothing, which is interesting. But he nukes it off the tee. He's a pretty good player overall. So I think that's interesting. And then the final 2 names on the list here, Sepp Straka, 9,900 is the salary, 1.56. Really, honestly, if I'm thinking about this from who can hit it in the right spots and play well from there, probably Sepp Straka deserves to get a little bit more of a bump than I was probably giving him before. He won the Truist in May, but since then missed the cut at the PGA and the US Open. Also missed the cut at the Masters. So he's 0 for 3 in majors this year, which is peculiar because he played such good golf otherwise. T7 last week, though, at the Genesis Scottish Open. Missed cut T2, T22 the last 3 years at the Open. So I'm expecting Straka to play pretty well this week. He's in pretty good form. And then, again, I don't know where Goddard's going to wind up, but all these names that I've mentioned so far are in the 9,000 range. The best form, the only golfer with above a 1.5 true strokes gained per round the last 3 months, with a salary below 9,000 in the field this week is Harris English. His salary is at 89, so it's not like it's way below that, but it is at least noteworthy. 110 to 1 to win. T22 last week at the Genesis Scottish Open, but just one top 40 in 9 opens, which was a T15 back in 2013. But he's been pretty good this year at majors. T12 at the Masters, T2 at the PGA, T59 at the US Open. So I think Harris English deserves a little bit of attention at 89 as well. Anybody here jump out to you?
Harris English, worth noting, may not have his caddy this week due to some visa issues, but still some time to work that out. So I like Harris English at 89 for sure. Do you want to talk about Fitz? Matt Fitzpatrick, $9,900. Not like that salary is not a bargain. The uptick for him has definitely been baked in. That doesn't mean I wouldn't use him because I think, frankly, that range is pretty good. Let me just share the FanDuel player tab over here really quickly. Fitzpatrick 99, Straka 99. I agree with you where Straka is pretty interesting this week. Sam Burns 98. The approach did come back to earth this past week, like you said, but still playing pretty good golf. Ben Griffin 97. That's a good range. Who's your favorite here?
Out of Fitz, Straka, Burns,
guys on the screen right now.
Well, okay. Sometimes
I didn't clarify, so I was trying to clarify there.
Favorite is going to be Fitz.
Okay. Then
Sepp, then Ben Griffin.
Do I have to hand the Northwestern Wildcat hat over to you then that I'm wearing? Like, is that?
That's not a good hat for me. I don't think you can keep that one.
You don't want the dad hat?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I think I might go Fitz first too.
86%.
Yeah.
He's 86th percentile putter from within 15 feet this year, 9th percentile beyond that. Putting's not one of my key stats this week, but putting regression numbers are always good to sort of have. Maybe it's a comfortable fit.
Straka's tempting as far as
Straka is very tempting as well.
Ranking this. So I think it's a good range. And I think that there are some guys right above this too who I don't dislike, and we'll talk about when we do the actual salary scale. Like Victor Hovland at 10-7, that's a good salary for him given the kind of golf he's playing right now. So I think I'll wind up being a bit more balanced this week than I have been in previous majors, which could influence my views on Scotty at 13-9. But I think that upper 9K range of the guys playing good golf recently in that current form section of Fitzpatrick, Straka, Burns, Griffin, those guys all play a factor in why I'm viewing things that way personally.
I changed my mind. I'm going Straka over Fitz.
Okay, cool. I think that I'd probably lean that way too. So I guess I could.
He's had a better ceiling. He's a better ball striker.
Yeah. Okay. Like you said, good finishes in the Open, despite the fact his major history this year is bad. So I agree that Straka's pretty tough to pass up. Weather for this week looks pretty even across all tee times. And by even, I mean it's going to be rainy and it's going to be windy for pretty much everyone. Now, not like outlandish wind, because you can get that at times. The max wind speed as of now, according to Weather Underground, 13 miles per hour midday Thursday. Both waves should get it pretty evenly because it peaks at around when the second wave should be teeing off and kind of peters off after that. It's like between 10 and 13 the entire day. So as things stand right now, I don't see a real need to stack a certain early or late wave personally. Obviously, things can get kind of wonky with weather here. So maybe that does change throughout the week. But at least as of Monday afternoon, I don't think there's any real need to, stack a certain tee time within your DFS lineups to totally avoid guys at a certain tee time within your bet slips and stuff like that. I think we can play things relatively straight up as things stand right now. Okay, let's take a look now at the betting odds at FanDuel Sportsbook and take a look at our favorite win bets for this week for the Open Championship. Brandon, I'm going to start things off with you. When you look at the outright odds of FanDuel Sportsbook, which golfer do you think should catch your interest as far as an outright bet for this week?
So I disagree that Scotty can't play well or can't putt well. I just want to kind of float that out there. We talked about Rory. I think that Rory can go get it done with how good his game is, but 7-1 is just too short for me. John Rahm, I'm really interested in, as always, playing really good golf at 12-1. Bryson DeChambeau, not really for me this week. I could be proven wrong. It'd be fun if Bryson plays, but it's whenever you get to 25-1 and you see Xander Schauffele, who won this event last year, just an incredible Open Championship player, historically, frankly, one of the best major championship players that we have. He's second only to Scotty Scheffler in so many different metrics when it comes to majors, and I'm sure you could kind of find the right exact split to have Xander better than Scotty over a somewhat relevant sample here too. But a lot of stuff points to Xander playing well, and again, playing better than he has been playing, or at least finishing better. I should probably clarify than he's been, because he's been playing some good golf. Just hasn't really always put it together in the same week. And I want to say, I talked about, I wanted a semblance of distance and accuracy off the tee. And historically, that's always led us to Xander because he's been able to have plus distance while having plus accuracy off the tee. In full transparency, his accuracy numbers have dipped since he's gained a lot of distance, but that's potentially at courses where he doesn't care if he's is accurate or not. This is like the problem of transitioning certain data to completely different setups where golfers are trying to do different things, and I'm very aware of that. So I think that Xander can still hit fairways whenever he needs to. And, again, he is the type of golfer who is going to play better at courses where he doesn't have to go super low. He plays better whenever you have more difficult setups. And that's really interesting to me always when it comes to Xander. If you want to look at putting numbers, like his putting's been kind of iffy, and I understand that, but he's a 63rd percentile putter on tour from within 15 feet this season. So above average still, but he's a 3rd percentile putter from beyond that, which is not typical for Xander. And it basically implies to me that he's making an above average number of his makeable putts and not really getting anything else to fall. And while putting itself is not my key stat, like one of my key stats for the week, I think it's an overall tee to green test. Virtually, if you kind of boil everything down in golf, the winner is the best putter out of the guy who has like decent tee to green numbers or strong tee to green numbers. Xander has that in his repertoire right now with how good he's playing. And if you want to look at any sort of trends, it's worth noting the last 4 winners at the Open have played the week prior at the Scottish Open, generally finishing well. Xander did it last year. He was T15 the week prior. Brian Harman was T12 at the Scottish Open before winning. And Cam Smith was T10 before winning at St. Andrews. Colin Morikawa was T71 when he won. That was specifically a European Tour event / a DP World Tour event. So it wasn't the co-sponsored event. But that was also Morikawa's basically first time ever playing anything like links golf. And then he went out and won the next week. So I think that everything points to Xander being a phenomenal ball striker, a great tee to green player, great major player. And he was T8 last week. So I think everything's setting up well for Xander. And as always, when it comes to betting major championships, I feel like I want to make bets that I can't regret. And I get it with like Ludwig. I get it with Tommy. I'm going to feel so much more comfortable betting Xander, and my model likes it. So everything points to Xander here in this second tier.
So I agree with you that Xander is the best outright bet in the board, but I think you might have actually undersold him for the first time in your life. You said that he played well last week. He led the freaking field in approach last week. Like, that to me is better than playing well. When you can lead the field in approach, 2.38 strokes per round, according to Data Golf on approach. Wasn't amazing in terms of like off the tee play, wasn't amazing with like his short game, but since the injury, we have seen him spike in those areas at times. We've seen him have a good driver for times. Seen him putt well. And as you said, he might be due for putting regression too. So when you look at Xander Schauffele, a guy who, again, led a good field in approach last week, has really good distance off the tee. He can be accurate when he needs to be still. Like, you look back to the US Open when accuracy did matter. He was above average in terms of accuracy relative to that field. That to me says that Xander Schauffele at 25-1, we're getting a good discount on him coming off that injury. And it's a setup that should suit him very well. So if I just one outright bet to make this week, it would be on Xander Schauffele 25-1 to win the Open Championship.
Yeah, he was seventh.
Go ahead.
Seventh last week in accuracy, third in greens and regulation, just didn't make the putts, basically. Again, if I'm with you, if there's one name, I can only pick one at the factoring in everything. It's Xander at 25.
I feel like this has happened a couple of times the past couple of years. We've both been on Xander in the same week. I believe that might have been the PGA Championship last year. I'm not entirely positive about that, but it happens enough, but it's also had good results in general. We've done that. So Xander Schauffele 25-1, first outright bet for both of us. Who's your second outright bet this week?
This one takes a little more convincing, but Viktor Hovland at 30. Viktor Hovland does not come to mind as someone who's going to, really thrive whenever you have to be creative around the green, kind of get out of trouble, etc. But that's not really been the case. Like, I get it that he missed the cut at the Open last year, but before that, T12, T4, T13 in his 3 other starts at the Open. He is, if I'm looking for ball striking, and that includes distance and accuracy off the tee and phenomenal iron play, that's basically Hovland's game. The driver right now is not exactly where you'd want it. I understand that. But he enters this year's Open ranked 3rd in strokes gained approach over the last 50 rounds. The other stats aren't quite as good, but I'm not as concerned about certain things because still due for some putting regression, not quite to the level of Xander, but 45th percentile putter from within 15 feet on tour this year. So slightly below average, but 20th percentile beyond that, should get a couple more putts to fall. T11 last week, despite, and that goes along with the trend that I talked about. We've seen some golfers play well at the Scottish Open and go out and play well at the Open the next week. So for me, I think, maybe the number is a little bit shorter than I'd like for it to be, but 30-1 is still well within the range of outcomes for me to get to Viktor Hovland based on what his pure upside is. And if this turns into a who hit the most greens and just didn't 3-putt a ton, it's not going to surprise me to see Viktor Hovland's name up there. And frankly, he's had enough good major runs that one of these is going to go his way at some point. So Hovland at 30 is the next name I'm looking at this week.
I mentioned before that I'd bet 3 golfers to win this week so far. Xander Schauffele 25 is one. We'll talk about the other guy in a second, but the other one is Viktor Hovland at 30. He's not a recommendation for me here on the show, but that's because I went with just 2 and I like the other guys more. He's pretty firmly 3rd for me. And like, if I had to pick between Viktor Hovland at 30 and Rory at 7, obviously my actions would say I would take Hovland, and I'd agree with that. I think that he is at the current odds, the 3rd best bet on the board to win this week. 30-1 for a guy who you mentioned the past 50 rounds for approach. If you look at the past 6 months, he's second behind Scotty. Like Scotty freaking Scheffler, then Hovland in terms of iron play. We've seen Hovland have a better driver at times past. You mentioned the putting regression could be there. I'm going to skip over around the green play because maybe it won't matter quite as much. It's a different kind of around the green, different flavor this week. Maybe I'll just use that as my coping mechanism here. But I think that he's a great bet at 30-1 personally.
Yeah, I just like, if you're going to say that Viktor Hovland's not a good around the green player, you then still have to explain how he's got 3 top 15s at Opens.
Yeah.
If you think that's the key to Open, like, he's just a good enough golfer that I don't think it is. I think it's fine.
Yep, I agree. So you are on Xander Schauffele 25-1, Viktor Hovland at 30. I am also on Xander at 25. Do like Viktor a lot at 30. The outright I like a bit more than that, though, is going to be he shortened. Come on, man. Corey Connors, he was 75 at FanDuel. I got him at 80. He was 75. He's now down to 70. I do still like him at 70, but I'm annoyed, frankly. I always get annoyed when I know I could have gotten a better number earlier. I did, again, personally, but like it's, for the show. Short into 70. I'm still okay with that though, personally, at 70-1 for Corey Connors. We talked about the wrist injury they had at the US Open, forced him to withdraw before the third, I think it was the fourth round. He had to withdraw from that one. He's played only once since then. That was the Genesis Scottish Open. He lost 0.42 strokes and approach there, but he did drive the ball pretty well. And that to me says he's healthy. The fact that he drove the ball well there. Kind of the same with Hovland with the neck injury. He was good there. And that's good for me to signal, hey, he's healthy. Don't talk about the neck injury for him. And I feel like Connors maybe just needed to knock the rust off because he had not played since the US Open before that one. So I don't think the injury caused a downtick for him there. It could have just been, getting back in the swing of things. Connor's history in the Open is not amazing. His best finish is 15th, but he was 25th last year, so it's not like he's bad at the Open Championship, just not as good as he is at like the US Open and other majors, or if he's like at the Masters. I'd rather do the outright than a top 10 on Connors because I do worry a bit about the injury, and if I'm taking a shot at 70-1, the actual dollar amount I bet on Connors is lower, and therefore my financial exposure to him is lower than what it would be if I were to bet him to finish top 10. So that's kind of my thought process here. Like, we're talking just outrights. I think I'd rather go with Corey Connors at 70-1 versus targeting him on tomorrow's show for a top 10 at whatever that may be. So Corey Connors, 70-1 is probably the lowest I'd bet him at. So if he shortens further from there, then I think I would step away. But 70-1 to me is still good enough to justify a bet on Corey Connors. Brandon, any thoughts for you on Corey Connors, 71 to win this week?
My model's fine with it, but I think my model likes it more than I personally would. You're getting into that territory at 70 of, and clearly I like Corey Connors. We talk about him a lot, but Corey Connors at 70 or Russell Henley at 65.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
And there's a big gap. There's two names between 55 and 80, and it's those two. You're not like, well, what about Cantlay at 55 or Connors at 70? Probably go Connors there, honestly. Brooks at 50. So it's not. There are a couple other names at least, and you've got like a Patrick Reed at 80, Sam Burns at 80, Ben Griffin 90. Like Cam Young's a great
Burns is a good counterpoint. He also has been bad in Open Championships, but it's a good counterpoint that he is there. So yeah, I hear you.
Even Cam Young at 80. So it's not specifically against Connors, I'm just not sold on,
but it's fine.
He's like American Tommy.
I know. Well, he's also kind of a big game hunter though. So I don't know, man. I'm kind of okay. I know that I should be less dismissive of him. I also am annoyed that I had to look at Patrick Reed's player profile today because I was like, dang it, he's actually good enough for actually to do some due diligence here. So I was very annoyed about that. But yeah.
And again, I think that 70 is still, that's about the breaking point for me with Connors. And the fact that my model is okay with it is telling, because mostly down here you see a lot of don't do it. And he's close. But I think I would still just kind of take a longer look at some of these other names potentially.
Yep.
And I don't think that we need to be completely out on Cameron Young, and he's not even the name. I think Russell Henley is my I'd go Henley over Connors there, but got some interesting names here as Jim scrolling that, and in a week where there's a lot of volatility, you can get some of these names. I mean,
just decide to plug all the current or former heat check guys at 120-1 or 150, I guess.
Yeah. This is the kind of week where you're going to get one of those names at a long number, and
someone's going to make a run.
Yeah. And tomorrow, usually whenever we do our betting picks in full detail, I give 2 outrights. Tomorrow I might go a little bit light on the non-outrights and start peppering some of these partial units on. I'm not saying I'm doing this, but just as an example, because I got to look into it more because we're a little more DFS this for today. Wyndham, partial unit on Wyndham Clark at 120.
Come on, man. I had that thought today, and then I pulled up again his player profile, and I sent you the screenshot of his recent approach play.
Yeah,
it's bad, man. It's real bad. I know he spiked a couple weeks ago, so it's he can have a good event, but Also, he's not 80, he's 120. Like that violates the very obvious rule of the heat check. We can't bet win if he's not 80 exactly. So like, come on, solidarity.
I mean, he was T11 last week. It fits the kind of mold. He was terrible with his irons, of course, but
there you go. Yeah. I agree with you where I might have some different things tomorrow because odds will change before we get there, but 70 is the lowest I can go at Connors, but I do like him still at 70. So I got Connors 70 and Xander Schauffele 25. You have Xander 25 and Victor Hovland 30. I think now that Connors is 70, I might like Hovland at 30 more than like Connors at 70 personally. So I think we're aligned this week, which is concerning. With that in mind, let's talk some DFS because we've been aligned here quite a bit recently with DFS. And I wouldn't be shocked if we're similar again this week. Now, the headliner for DFS this week is that Scotty Scheffler is 13-9, and then the next highest hour is Rory McIlroy at 11-9. As we discussed throughout this summer, when they've put Scotty around $14,000 on a pretty consistent basis, we've been pretty willing to pay that tax. I'm less willing to do it this week, and I think I like Rory more at salary. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I think the gap is closing a bit. Mm-hmm. And whenever you factor in the course differential for where Scotty's been gaining so many strikes, and like he was good last week. He didn't putt well. So like that's not lost on me. But when you add in the variance of the Open Championship and $2,000 in savings, while we have we talked about like Wyndham Clark at a long number for a win, something like that. There's not as many when you put it into a DFS context. I like those like hope and prayer kind of options a lot less because you need these golfers to play well in order to get 6 out of 6 through, which is going to be difficult this week just by design. But that extra 2,000 goes a long way to avoiding that.
It does.
So I am going to rank Rory process-wise straight up against Scotty. I'm going to rank Rory higher than Scotty. I do think Scotty is going to be a phenomenal tournament play.
Yeah. Because
I do think that he'll be a little less popular than he deserves to be due to the salary and the potential narrative that he's not going to play his best golf at a setup like this. But I'm with you, Rory over Scotty this week for the first time in a while.
And another part of that is kind of something we alluded to earlier on, where I like the mid-range this week. And if I go with Rory, I can get there pretty easily. But I also think I can get there if I go Rory plus Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm's at 11-6. If I do those two guys together, I've got 91.25 left per golfer. That allows me to get in that mid-range a bit. Because there's some golfers, it's not a ton of guys in the like low 8,000 range who I like, but like there's a guy in the 7K range who I think is pretty interesting for this week. So I can get to Rory plus Rahm and still get a lot of exposure to that, I think, pretty impressive mid-range. So I like Rahm a lot, 11-6, and I'm guessing based on your betting sentiments on him, where you're not going to quite get there at 12, but you're overall into him. Sounds like I think you're on the same page there too.
With Rahm?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Rahm over Xander in DFS, despite liking Xander betting, it's 12-1 versus 25-1, and then 11-6 versus 11-4. And
yeah,
it's a pretty simple one. It's not like it's so glaring, but Xander over Tommy for sure. But Rory and Rahm, really interesting start this week because I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to those two, despite it being volatile. Like these two could, but I think things kind of dip a little bit beyond that too is part of the problem.
I agree. I've used Bryson a lot in majors this year. 11-3 to me though. So his betting odds are shorter than Xander's, and yet his salary is lower. That's always a weird dynamic. So I think I should be tempted by Bryson. I don't know though. I don't have any interest. Like I'm going to use Tyrrell Hatton in season long this week because I have to because he's a live guy and I can only use him twice per year. So like I need to use him season long, but like I don't feel the need to get there in DFS. Morikawa's weird. I think Lowry's oversalaried at $11,000 despite winning here in 2019. Ludwig's a wild card. Big shot Bob McIntyre at 10-8. Not really getting there. I like Hovland a lot at 10-7. So to me, I'm probably not using anybody. I don't even know if I'll use Xander in DFS. I might just be very concentrated on, Scheffler, Rory, Rahm, and then, use Hovland as the next guy, filter in a 10-7. Are you okay skipping over their age entirely? Is anyone you want to bring up there or no?
So skipping over specifically
Bryson through Big Shot Bob.
The name I'd be most interested in there is Ludwig because he's impossible to figure out statistically. Just due
he has
to
a ceiling.
He has a big ceiling. His putting is. Let me see his putting here. Because he stands out. He's one of the guys sticking to the blade. Just the awkward 15th percentile splits unmakeable putts and 82nd beyond that. Like, he would be the name, but overall, probably no.
Hovland at 10-7. If you go with like, I would like to go Rory plus Rahm, but like a Rory plus Hovland at 10-7, that's pretty interesting too. That leaves you with 93.50 left per golfer. I could get to maybe like a Russell Henley's a 10-2. We can get to some of those guys in that upper 9 range. Like that's pretty fun too. So I think for me, I'll have some builds where it's Rory plus Hovland. I go more balanced, kind of like old school heat check in a major where it's like you do go more balanced than we usually would do. But preferred build is to go Rory plus Rahm. I think that's where I settle in right now.
Yeah. This might be a do as I say, not as I do, but I like Spieth.
Oh, okay.
At 10-4.
That's fine. Pitch me. Give me the sell.
One of the best open players that we have. And I think he might just be the type of golfer who is a little bit phased out. Like he's longer off the tee than people probably realize, but he might just kind of be a specialist. It's in a certain way. 7 straight top 25s at opens, has not missed a cut in 11 starts. And we last saw him. Hold on, is this the right year? Jeez, oh man, I did not realize this. Last time we saw him was the U.S. Open.
Well, for a full tournament.
Yeah. Was second in approach.
Yeah. And like when he withdrew at the Travelers with that injury, we talked about that week, like, hey, he's on our radar, like a guy we might want to bet in the pretty near future. Then he obviously had the injury, but as we said he's healthy. New dad swag, some factors in his favor. Good Open Championship player. I think I'd rather bet him though than play him at 10-4.
I was going to say that as you finished. I think just maybe bet him and get out. And be done with it. Similar to like a Brooks historically in majors. Does Brooks do anything for you?
Not really.
So Brooks at opens, he's got 4 top 25s, but his last 3 have been missed cut, T64, T43.
Yeah.
Just a lot of like uninspired numbers. It's hard to kind of dig into. Cut, and T12 at majors this year. And since we're talking, I feel like we kind of gloss over Bryson so much. He's got 1 top 25 and 7 starts at opens. 3 missed cuts, just not great. So like those 2 guys, you might say, well, it's a major. Kind of just plug them in. I don't think I'm there. I think I'd rather go Henley. Actually, Henley over even Spieth in DFS.
Yep. I agree with
that
too.
I like of safety aspect of it.
I like Henley at 10-2, a good amount. It helps that, like we talked last week about at the Genesis Scottish Open, like, hey, you want to go guys with some distance. That's not going to be a setup that's great for Henley. But this week, as you alluded to, like you do want both, and he does not have one component of that, but he at least has the accuracy to a drastic degree. And he can still gain strokes off the tee despite not being long. Like he's not going to get a lot, but he can be neutral at least. So I think Henley's pretty fun.
Yeah, not going Cantlay. Hideki's a little bit interesting, but probably Straka.
Yeah.
Straka is a name that I might need to prioritize, honestly.
Sure. Fine with that.
great ball striker, accurate.
Yep.
Great putter, like good underlying splits. So he's interesting. He's going to be a preference there. Matt Fitzpatrick, we talked about him. You talked about Sam Burns.
Yeah.
From a betting standpoint, does he do enough for you from a DFS standpoint?
Yeah, I'll use him. I think that for me, it'd be a question. So like we had the Straka versus Fitz question before. I would have to weigh Sam Burns versus our guy, Ben Griffin. And I know Burns' approach play was really poor last week, but I think I would still go with Burns over Griffin personally, just because the approach had been trending up. The off the tee play is still really good. We know he could putt his brains out. So I go Burns over Griffin personally. What about you?
Yeah, I have him ranked a bit higher too.
Okay, cool. Scrolling down further, I think it does get a bit less interesting after that. I like Keegan Bradley 9.5, Corey Connors 9.5. I think both those guys are pretty fun. Frankly, I think as much as I like Connors as a bet, he might be a better DFS play. So I thought it dropped off. Ken actually doesn't. I like Keegan, I like Connors. Both those guys pretty fun. What about you in the mid range in the mid 9K range?
Those are the two names I flagged as well, with Keegan and Connors, just cheaty green guys, and that's the way I'd like to play it this week. Which also then, as we continue to scroll, JJ Spawn at 9,200 just remains relevant from that standpoint for me.
Yeah.
So
who do
if
you
I
prefer
can
between Connors and Keegan?
I'd have to look a little bit closer, but probably my assumption would be Keegan.
Okay.
Yeah, I have him really close. I think I'd feel better with Keegan though.
Do you want to do a bet or no?
Sure,
DFS
but that
points?
also that always guarantees that.
I know I need every help I can get. Like every helper I can get with Connors in this outright. I'll take it every boost I can get.
So what are we doing? Finishing position?
No, FanDuel points between Keegan and Connors.
All
right, cool. I did look a bit into Patrick Reed. I couldn't quite convince myself, especially with Spawn there at 92. I think I was like, okay, well, I don't need to worry about it too much. I'll just go JJ Spawn, not worry about it. I do like Spawn a lot at 92. I know he missed the cut last week, didn't play great, but just overall, the tee to green play, as you alluded to, is very good. Short game from has been improving. So I think that's encouraging. Spawn last week was a miscut due to the bad short game again, but the ball striking was still fine. So I still like him in 92 despite the miscut last week.
Yeah, one miscut is not indicative of much.
Agreed. Okay. Scrolling down further, let's get to 9K and lower. Who is catching your eye down here?
I got Harry Hall at 9,000.
Mm-hmm.
His short game's great. The putting is really, really hot. He's got 2, 4, 6, 7 straight top 20s. That includes T19 at the PGA Championship, T17 at the Genesis, Scottish Open. So he jumped out to me. He can have good ball striking weeks. He can gain distance. So want to put a pin in that name. Aaron Ryan Harris English at 89, also for different reasons, but still good tee to green ball strikers for the most part. So, but this is probably where below Spawn and even Spawn you could knock for a lack of open history. I think below 95 is where you really start to make those concessions and have to talk yourself into people.
Yeah.
So something like a Rory Hovland Henley start. You get one kind of pure value, and then you can still be in the upper 9K range, mid to upper. I think that's interesting this week.
Yep, I agree. Harris English 89 is a guy that I like quite a bit, so I am fully okay with being there. Hall, a bit more short game dependent than I like. Like you said, he can do some stuff with the ball striking, so I'm not opposed, but that was kind of the reason I went with HE over Harry Hall at $9,000. And then scrolling down a bit further, Maverick McNeely, 87, kind of want to get your thoughts on him because he was someone who did grab my interest. He's not as hot as he was back in the spring, but still playing pretty good golf. 22nd at the Scottish Open, 17th at the Travelers, made the cut in all 3 majors so far this year. So I like Mav at 87. Are you on board with that one?
Yeah, he is on my list as well. Got some volatility and like a good sense. Talked about him having a ceiling. For last week's event, he is over the last 50 rounds, his average strokes gained plus a standard deviation to kind of get like a ceiling metric there. He's 15th in the field this week, despite a salary of just 8,700. So I like that from a pop perspective for sure. He's probably the name that I prefer the most below like 89.
Okay.
I think it's pretty safe to say that. I don't mind Brian Harmon. Interested to see where Chris Goddard winds up, but who else down here do you like? Anybody?
I think Goddard, if he's like around 9,000, I'll be good with. If he's above that, then I think I lean towards like a JJ Spawn kind of guy. Yeah. Just based on his win odds, I think that it'll probably be around 9,000. But I could be off on that too. So if he's 9,000, I'll be very good with Goddard personally. If he's lower than that, then sick. Sign me up for sure.
That's what I said earlier. I just have kind of, I jotted down roughly that 85, but I do think you'd be closer to 9K.
85 would be nice. I'd be very good with that. I do not hate the idea of Wyndham Clark at 82. It's like his approach has just been so bad. But like we also know that he like in the long run, he's not going to be that bad of an iron player. And if he can like rebuild some confidence in his game by having these like quality finishes at the Travelers, his approach was good at the Travelers. And then a good finish last week at the Scottish Open. So like if he can rebuild like confidence in the irons, maybe he can have like an actual spike week again. So don't hit 82 just because like the salary's so low. It's kind of like, why not? And then a guy who cashed a 11-1 top 10 for me last week, Marco Penji. I looked it up and I couldn't get a great answer on pronunciation of his last name. But really good DP World Tour player, $7,800 for him. Finished second last week at the Genesis Scottish Open. Tons of distance, pretty solid iron play. I will say that his putter last week was good. That is typically very much not the case. He has been a bad putter if you look at the DP World Tour stats. So I'm not expecting like a second again, but these salaries came up before he finished second last week. And like, he's probably better than what the salary says. So I'll be there on Penge at 78 for me personally. What about you for like the true value plays this week?
Yeah, I watched mostly on mute this week, so I didn't catch a pronunciation. And I looked it up on PGA Tour. They don't have a pronunciation listed for him either, but he's on my list. Would you be interested in a Nick Taylor versus Wyndham Clark FanDuel points bet?
No, I can't. Wyndham in a head-to-head is like the worst possible format I could possibly concoct. I might prefer Nick Taylor there, like straight up personally.
Okay. I like Nick Taylor a good amount. He's a pretty good iron player. He's got some pop with the irons as well. And just a more consistent golfer than Clark, which might not mean anything this week, but it is what it is. Yeah. I just don't love a lot of names here that I want to put a stamp on. Yeah. And that becomes the problem. Yeah. I can talk myself into a lot of names like Tom Kim. Didn't he play well last week? Yeah. His numbers are like less red than they were previously, but they were also aggressively red. So that's not saying a ton. Boy, amazing irons the last two starts for him. That's with a missed cut at the John Deere. So this would be a 6-round sample, but 2.24 per round over 2 rounds at the Deere, and then 1.89 at the Genesis Scottish Open. Those are like field leader types of numbers. T47 Straka were tied for second at the Open back in 2023. Yeah, T47 T2 missed cut in 3 Open starts. I don't think that is abysmal at just 8,100. Yeah, it's a fair point. Fair shout. So I'd probably put him on the list as well as a tepid if I need to. But I think ultimately this might answer the question. How many golfers below 85, or I guess even below 87 with Matt McNeely, would you put in a lineup? Would you put 2 of those golfers in the same lineup? Yeah. How many do you think on average, roughly, or like what percentage of your lineups do you think you'll have 2 golfers below 87? What percentage will I have 2 below 80? So not counting Mav, correct? Correct. Like, do you want to cap it at Mav or no? I think I'd probably maybe 20% of lineups would have 2, including Mav. So like 3 golfers below 9. Okay. No, it would be maybe I'd probably use them to skip over Mav, basically. Okay. If that makes sense. I I don't know if I want more than 2 golfers below 9,000 in a lineup this week, despite the fact that it's super volatile. I know we can cherry pick after the fact and say like, well, the optimal lineup was very value friendly, but that's different than being predictive.
I might not need to go that aggressive, frankly, with going, I think 20% may have been too high. Because if I put in Penji plus Wyndham with Rory and Rahm, I got 10,250 left. That means I can go with Hovland but I don't need to do that build a lot. I just need like one dart with that build. So maybe it's closer to like 10% I go 2 of those guys.
That's probably how you get to Scotty too.
True. That as well. So I think we're looking more 10, 15% with that more aggressive build for me. Okay. Who are your DFS loves for this week?
Love's going to be at salary, Rory and Rahm.
Agreed.
Hovland at 10-7.
Agreed.
Sepp Straka.
Okay.
Although Russell Henley's close at 10-2, but Sepp Straka at 99. I'd say Fitzpatrick's close, but Keegan at 95. And then probably Harris English at 89.
Okay. I have a very similar list of Rory, Rahm. I like Hovland a lot. Straka, 99. I think I like Corey Connors quite a bit at 95. I'll put him on that list too. Harris English, 89. I like Mav, 87. And then Penji's like a pretty firm, like I would say, relative to salary at 78. The putter does scare me, so I want to make sure I cap my roster rate on him, like maybe 25-ish%, which is, if I'm setting a cap on someone, I tend to set it a bit higher than that. But I think given the putter woes and concerns, I think that's a fair number for me. All right, let's finish up here with our win picks for this week. You have defeated me in the Bobble Hat, which I think means you've either clinched or are very close to clinching victory for the season-long contest. But hey, the win picks contest soldiers on. It's over. Dust.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Let me know when you know what you want me to buy you for that. But hey, still got the lead in the win picks contest for now. Who you got? You want to pick first and fourth? I'm assuming you want first and fourth and you want Xander.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want Victor then at 30.
I knew that was going to happen, but it is what it is.
So, like, I could go Connors because he is still my third favorite win bet for this contest. But as I mentioned, like, he's like, that's as short as I can go, and he doesn't fit as well for the actual contest. So, do I consider Spieth 55? I could. Do I consider someone else? Do I consider a Rory at 7-1? If I do Rory and he wins, my lead would be like 29 units or so, which is like not an amazing number to be at. Like, it doesn't grant me a lot of leeway. I could go Rahm at 12 because then 22 and 34 is a bigger difference. So for the purposes of the game, I'll go Rahm at 12 as my second win pick this week. Again, I would not bet Rahm at 12 to be clear, but for the purpose of this contest, I'm going to pick him for here.
So I need to hit at least 23-1. So Xander works out great there. I'm eyeing up a real Jim situation where it's potentially Ludwig at 28, Tommy at 28, Morikawa at 30, Tommy. Or 30 for Shane Lowry.
You should pick Tommy. You should pick Shane.
Where I'm leaning is between Ludwig and Morikawa.
Those were not the two names I told you to pick, and I think you should pick the ones I told you to pick instead.
Because I can't go Hovland. Oh, Tiro Hatton at 33 is also in the mix. I think for me, I'm going to go with... That's tough. I think I'm going to go Ludwig at 28.
Okay. So you have Ludwig at 28 and Xander Schauffele at 25. I have Jon Rahm at 12 and Victor Hovland at 30 as our win picks this week. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to nullify this statement in a second, but we went the entire major podcast without mentioning Joaquin Niemann, and I am proud of me for that. This is growth. Proud of you, Jim. Great job, Jim. Thanks, Jim. Any final thoughts for you before we close up shop for the DFS and win picks portion of the show and send it off to the full betting card show for tomorrow?
I say this all the time in some form or fashion, but especially this week, it's going to be tough. Golfers are going to miss the cut. If you do not think that Jon Rahm has it and we do, like, that's fine. I think that there are so many different ways you can take this one. But with that process-wise, I do think a couple names stand out, and it's going to lead Jim and I to be a bit similar, which is kind of typical at this point. I think I just need to break down my process and start from scratch. But I think that you can read this one probably any different way this week.
And there are enough guys who are like interesting to us. We talked about from a betting perspective too. Like we had interest in Spieth. We had some interest in some other guys too. So it's like maybe Henley at 65. So I actually do think we'll see some interesting stuff tomorrow on the show too. That'll be on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, but also on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. So make sure you're subscribed both those places. And if you like what you heard here, leave us a 5-star rating on the Apple Podcasts or Spotify platform and a thumbs up over on YouTube. Brandon, people have questions for you on social media. Where can they find you there?
I am on X at Gdula13, GDULA13, and on Blue Sky at Gdula.
And I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work in the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your bets and your DFS lineups this week. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to break down the full betting card for the Open Championship. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.